thanking Rishi Sunak's ministers for the work that has been done and for the very good exchanges between the two sides.
5 ans se sont écoulés depuis la dernière rencontre entre nos deux gouvernements. Durant ces 5 années, nos sociétés ont traversé la pandémie de Covid-19.
Since then,
elles connaissent le retour de la guerre sur notre continent.
Our respective societies have seen war on our continent.
Le 18 janvier 2018 à Sandhurst, je rappelais qu'il y a 2 choses que rien ne peut changer.
And on the 18th of January 2018, in the last Franco-British summit,
c'est notre histoire et notre géographie.
Nothing
et celle-ci nous place ensemble face à un
would make
commun.
our relationship change.
C'est encore plus vrai aujourd'hui. Nous avons une histoire qui nous lie. Nous avons
Our geography and history places us in front of a common history.
Entre nos peuples qui parfois
We have common values, common solidarity, and friendship among issues. Our communities and our people can be electrified when it comes to issues on the football pitch. And I think this is why this summit today, in this sense, is exceptional. It's a day where we can find each other, where we can reconnect and we can walk a new path together. It shows the EU needs to talk to other countries and build a global context in this nature. What we've discussed so far and what our governments have discussed so far. And the meetings we had with our young leaders showed this. In the serious international context we are now facing, in which Europe sees in front of itself new responsibilities, our 2 countries who are members of the Security Council of the UN, also members of NATO, are building concrete solutions for the future. In this context, I would like to greet well this new context of working well with the EU, specifically the Windsor Framework, which we have recently signed with Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President of the EU. The new way for our relationship, I would like to say once again that Russia again cannot win this war. We're helping Ukraine since the first day of this war, not just from the military point, but from the economic point. We're doing everything we can for this war not to expand in Europe.
Et nous voulons ensemble préparer les prochaines semaines et les prochains mois avec une conviction commune, c'est qu'il faudra trouver une issue à ce conflit, qu'il nous faut placer nos alliés dans la meilleure situation possible, qu'ils choisissent du moment et des termes d'une négociation qui sera à conduire. Et donc, dans la manière de conduire aujourd'hui les opérations, il y a cette volonté de bâtir une paix durable et acceptable, c'est-à-dire une paix qui respecte le droit international.
Sorry, we're just having technical issues here. Our translation should be back very shortly.
Se tenait à Versailles un Conseil européen important où nous définissions les termes de l'autonomie stratégique.
A year ago, during the Versailles summit, we defined the different terms in which Europe will be independent. The Queen was part of the European family.
Avec votre pays. Et c'est pourquoi en matière de sécurité et de défense,
we want for our 2 countries, the UK and France, to build in the same direction. We need to be partners in this sense, in the face of this conflict in Ukraine. We need to commonly enforce our partnerships,
d'avancer avec un calendrier ambitieux sur le futur missile anti-navire et le futur missile de croisière, sur l'interopérabilité de nos systèmes et dans des domaines différents que la maîtrise des fonds marins ou des armes à énergie. Et donc le renforcement de ces capacités
We need to focus on our defense systems and improve our capacities.
Pour penser les termes aussi de la sécurité
The work
européenne de
between
demain,
our two countries
c'est-à-dire avoir
is
un vrai
something
cadre
we need to build
juridique
upon
et des vraies
for the
capacités
days of
pour notre
tomorrow,
protection antimissile et bâtir
especially within the framework of the European
les
defense
décisions
system
prises sur News.
against ballistic missiles.
Vous l'avez compris, l'engagement que nous voulons prendre, c'est de travailler maintenant pour notre continent en la matière pour développer une stratégie commune, renforcer à cet égard nos coopérations.
To develop this new strategy, we need to reinforce our current operations,
la coopération énergétique. En la matière,
not just on defense systems, but also on the environmental problems that we are
Elle
facing.
est forte, elle est le fruit de choix.
This, in that sense, was not impacted by Brexit.
Le
Our commitment to these issues still remains strong.
La concrétisation la plus visible de la coopération franco-britannique dans ce
The
secteur.
relationship between our countries is still strong.
Que nous soutenons pleinement.
For example, the project of Sizewell C, the nuclear plant in
Et la
the
volonté
UK.
donc de poursuivre cette unité, ces projets communs dans le nucléaire civil. Et à côté de ça,
It will be the start of a new dynamic for civil nuclear production
en matière
in the
d'énergie
UK.
renouvelable, vous avez
And as we've seen again in the morning, in terms of renewable energy,
éolien en mer,
you, the British state, has a political expertise when it comes to marine wind power.
Les choses sont très convergentes. C'est le même engagement que nous souhaitons sur les questions environnementales, avec une ambition commune, accélérer notre sortie des énergies fossiles,
This is
mais
why
aussi
we have the same
réformer notre
commitment
architecture financière
to
internationale, le
leaving
soutien
fossil
à la lutte contre le
fuels
changement climatique, notamment en préparant les résultats du sommet qui se tiendra
in order to
à Paris
fight
le 23
climate
juin
change.
sur le nouveau pacte financier et renforcer nos engagements communs en matière de
For example, working on the
défense de
new
la
financial
biodiversité,
pact
et
that we'll be
ceci
talking
à travers
about
les
on the
différents rendez-vous
23rd
d'année,
of
dont la
June,
COP de fin d'année qui
which
nous
will be
permettra
held
de
in
finaliser
Paris
des
this year.
concrétisations ensemble. Et puis c'est évidemment dans la lutte contre l'immigration irrégulière que nous voulons
Also
aussi
trying to finalise
avancer
projects at the
de
end of
concert.
COP this year.
Nous avons chacun conscience des enjeux humains qui s'y rattachent et de l'extrême sensibilité de ces sujets.
With
Alors,
regards
ensemble,
to
nous
the
agissons
sea,
déjà, et je
we
veux
know
ici
that we
remercier
need to
nos
work
deux ministres
better
et
in
l'ensemble des
protecting
équipes qui
our
travaillent très
sea
étroitement.
resources.
En
And
2022,
I would like
ce sont
to
plus de
thank our
1300
two
traversées
ministers
d'embarcations
who work very
que nous avons
closely on
empêchées.
this subject.
Ensemble, nous avons démantelé
In
55 filières
2022,
de
there's
criminalité
been more
organisée
than
et procédé
1,300 channel
à plus de
crossings
500 arrestations
that
grâce
we've
au
seen.
travail de la cellule de renseignement conjointe
We've
franco-britannique.
dismantled 50
Nous avons
gangs
convenu le 14 novembre dernier d'un cadre bilatéral
and
renouvelé
proceeded
ambitieux pour continuer
towards
la lutte
300
contre l'immigration
arrests.
irrégulière. Nous avons aujourd'hui décidé de continuer en ce sens de manière très opérationnelle, concrète et conscient du
In this
caractère
sense,
partagé
we've
de notre
tried to
responsabilité.
continue
Et
because
à cet
we
égard,
know we
nous avons
share
décidé,
responsibility
justement,
when
d'une
it comes
coordination
to the channel.
renforcée de nos activités,
We've
de
decided
nouvelles initiatives
today
nous obligent
to
l'un et
better
l'autre.
coordinate
Et il s'agit
our
pour nous
activities
d'agir
with
ensemble
new
dans un
initiatives
cadre pleinement
for
partagé.
us.
Mais nous l'avons dit aussi, de pouvoir le faire avec l'ensemble des Européens qui sont concernés par
To do so,
les
being
transits et
able
le
to
passage
work
des
together
migrants et avec
more closely
certains
and
pays
better,
depuis lesquels sont organisés les trafics.
and
Et
also
à cet
with
égard,
other European
le groupe de
countries
Calais,
who are concerned about
un
channel
forum pertinent de
crossings.
coordination, et nos deux ministres y travaillent étroitement et ils ont prévu d'avoir des réunions prochaines sur ce sujet, mais nous souhaitons
The
aussi engager
situation in Calais
plusieurs pays
is
d'origine,
particularly
plusieurs pays
important,
impliqués
and our two
dans
ministers
les
are
différentes
working
questions.
in this regard.
Nous nous sommes accordés pour cela sur la nécessité d'augmenter nos capacités d'intervention et de surveillance et nous avons
They're trying to work against
décidé
illicit gangs who are
de
operating
renforcer un
in the
financement
area.
pluriannuel qui permettra d'engager des sommes à la hauteur du besoin actuel de part et d'autre.
We've also agreed
Enfin,
to
toutes les
reinforce our
coopérations dont nous avons parlé
multi-year
aujourd'hui
package
ne seraient que de
to
peu d'utilité
finance
sans
operations
des actions concrètes pour
against
renforcer les liens
gangs
entre nos
in the
sociétés
channel.
civiles. Nous avons tenu à rencontrer, je le disais, des entreprises britanniques et françaises
What we've
investies,
discussed today
en particulier dans les
wouldn't
enjeux de
be
la
so
décarbonation et qui ont
important
pu annoncer
if what
aujourd'hui
we
des projets très
weren't
concrets
being able to
et
discuss
démontrer par
was
l'exemple
included in
cette
civil
complémentarité,
society,
cette volonté
if we weren't
d'avancer
able to
ensemble.
discuss
Nous avons aussi
companies
rencontré des
such as
jeunes
we were
talents
this morning,
franco-britanniques au parcours déjà prometteur et ils seront les acteurs
working
de notre
together
entente cordiale.
in
Il était
order to
indispensable
better
qu'ils soient
develop
partie
our
intégrante
economies.
de ce sommet
They will be the actors of our entente cordiale. They are an integral part of our meeting, and that they need to better cooperate for our schools, our sportive endeavours, and our overall cultural exchanges, for them to be better in the future. As this summit has not been the same as usual, given what's happened, given what is happening in the last few years and the planet, this summit is focusing on new ambitions, and I hope that in the future this will all be for the best. Thank you, Prime Minister, for being with us in Paris today. And we should shortly hear from Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister now.
Thank you for hosting us here today. Now, if we're honest, the relationship between our two countries has had its challenges in recent years. And I'm not just referring to France knocking England out of the World Cup, but I believe today's meeting does mark a new beginning, an entente renewed. We are looking to the future, a future that builds on all that we share, our history, our geography, our values, and a future that is far more ambitious about how we work together to improve the lives of the people that we serve. We've discussed every aspect of our crucial alliance today and made important progress in 3 areas in particular: illegal migration, energy, and security. Emmanuel and I share the same belief. Criminal gangs should not get to decide who comes to our countries. Within weeks of my coming into office, we agreed our largest ever small boats deal. And today we've taken our cooperation to an unprecedented level to tackle this shared challenge. We're announcing a new detention centre in northern France, a new command centre bringing our enforcement teams together in one place for the first time, and an extra 500 new officers patrolling French beaches, all underpinned by more drones and other surveillance technologies that will help ramp up the interception rate. And the legislation the UK has introduced this week supports this, because it's designed to break the business model of the criminal gangs and remove the pull factors bringing them to the Channel coast. Now, we will always comply with our international treaty obligations, but I am convinced that within them that we can do what is necessary to solve this shared problem and stop the boats. Second, the UK and France are working together so that never again can the likes of Putin weaponize our energy security. You are helping us to secure our supply of nuclear power thanks to EDF's incredible work at Sizewell C. And through our ports and interconnectors, we can be Europe's gateway for non-Russian gas. But today we are going even further with an ambitious new energy partnership. We've signed a new deal on civil nuclear cooperation, agreed that France will examine the case for new energy interconnectors, and committed to work together on low-carbon energy. Together, I believe we are creating a future where every watt of energy powering our homes and industry will come from secure, sustainable, and reliable sources. Third, the UK and France share a special bond and a special responsibility. When the security of our continent is threatened, we will always be at the forefront of its defence. And today we're going even further to strengthen our security and defence cooperation. We've agreed to train Ukrainian Marines, helping to give Ukraine a decisive advantage on the battlefield and for Ukraine to win this war. To increase the interoperability of our forces, harnessing the full potential of the combined Joint Expeditionary Force. To promote security and stability in the Indo-Pacific, coordinating our carrier deployments. And we will jointly explore the development of complex weapons like air defence, combat air and long-range weapons. Now, for decades, we've been two of the world's biggest defence powers and leading contributors to NATO, and we will continue to stand together for freedom, democracy and the rule of law. Finally, today there has also been a celebration of the richness of our cultures, all that we give to each other and all that we learn from each other. So we've agreed to make it easier for our children to go on school exchanges, and our museum creators, writers and artists to create and collaborate together. And that brings me to my concluding thought, that for all the agreements that we've reached today, in the end, it's about people, the bonds of family, friendship and solidarity that we share. And there's no greater example of that human connection than the sympathy of the French people on the passing of Her Majesty the Queen. And I want to thank you personally, Emmanuel, for the graciousness of your words. They said everything about you as a leader and as a friend of Britain. You know, I've learned very quickly in this job that there are some things you can control and some things that you can't. And one thing that you can't control is who you get as an international counterpart. I feel very fortunate to be serving alongside you and incredibly excited about the future that we can build together. Merci, mon ami.
Hello and welcome to Euronews' special coverage of the first British-French summit since 2018. That was UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak speaking in front of French President Emmanuel Macron. It looks like the two leaders will now be taking questions from the press.
Thank you. Chris Mason from BBC News. The same question to you both, if I may. Do you think you'll ever be able to arrange a deal where migrants leaving France for the UK are returned to France? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that. Thanks, Chris. I think what you've seen today is an unprecedented level of cooperation on tackling this shared challenge, because that's what it is. It's a shared challenge. It's not just the UK that's grappling with illegal migration. It's not just France. It's countries across Europe. And now our partnership is incredibly strong. I think the work that our two Home Secretaries, Suella and Gerard, have done over the past few months has been unlike anything that anyone's ever seen. And you're seeing the fruits of that cooperation today with a new agreement, new investment, and that will help both of us stop the cycle of these criminal gangs. And going forward, there will be more that we can do. We started that last November, we've built on it today, and we'll continue cooperating. As the President said, and he'll probably talk about, the Calais Group is another important forum for these conversations to happen with other Northern European countries, and I'm sure Emmanuel probably will talk a little bit about the EPC. And as we think about future cooperation between the UK and other countries in Europe, what the President has set up as a new forum for that engagement to happen, and illegal migration, I'm certain will be one of the topics that we will discuss when we come to that meeting that we'll be pleased to host next year in the UK, and obviously is happening this year elsewhere.
Yes, thank you for your question. First, I think we focus on what we have to do on the short run to prevent precisely these migrations and to try to dismantle all these groups, these networks and these smugglers. And I think the level of ambition of this new plan is exactly what we need. This is what we can do at the bilateral level. Second, this is not an agreement between UK and France, but an agreement between UK and the EU, because Dublin Agreement are no more in a situation to be implemented. So this is something now to be negotiated. Third, as Mr. Prime Minister just further said, we do believe that the right way to approach these migrations is a broader space. Western Balkans, European Union, and not just France and UK, have to work closely together in order precisely to dismantle these groups and to be more efficient regarding this phenomenon. And this is why it's part of the key topics we have to discuss in the framework of this European political community. And our perspective is to have concrete discussion in June in Chisinau, in Moldova, and indeed next semester we will have in Spain and the semester after in UK. So we want to follow up.
Question suivante pour la partie française. Bonjour Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Francesco Fontemaggi pour l'agence France Presse. Le Kremlin a dû voir la main étrangère et particulièrement occidentale de les protestations des derniers jours en Géorgie. Quelle est votre réponse à ça? Et voyez-vous en retour la main de Vladimir Poutine
the Western hand has been seen in the recent protests in Georgia in the last few days. What do you think about the new law that Georgia has now discontinued discussing, the new bill that they were going to bring in?
d'une négociation à terme? Est-ce que Monsieur Sunak...
And what does that tell you about the necessities of a peace agreement in Ukraine? Do you share the convictions of the President Rishi Sunak? On this question, I don't think there's a tendency that's new in the Kremlin to consider that any population movement in a country is coming from an external force or behavior or even an external attack. Since we are a democracy, we can disagree quite strongly with this statement. Georgia is going through some social movements in the modern era that could be seen as we've seen that the European flag has been shown in the protests. So many images of these have been striking. In our role as leaders, we must help countries to be sovereign on their own soil. Georgia is going through some pressures at the moment, and it needs to be able to be free, to be sovereign and have its own choices, even with regard to the European Union. I would also like to say that some of the old politicians who are held in prison, I would like to call for these politicians to be released, or even just their health to be checked, considering their conditions are alarming. When it comes to Ukraine, we would like to say that we want to help Ukraine, that it's to try and counter Russia's invasion. I've always said that our perspective is for a peaceful and long scenario. I've always said that these accords must be peaceful, and we want Ukraine to have the best possible options.
Let me just be unequivocal about this. We want Ukraine to win this war, and we're absolutely united in that. And right now, that means providing them with the support and the capabilities and the training in order to mount a counteroffensive and have decisive advantage on the battlefield. And that's what you've seen from the UK, from France, from other allies, whether it's through the provision of main battle tanks, longer-range weapons, as we've announced today, training of Marines. These are all things that will help Ukraine win this war, gain that advantage on the battlefield, mount a successful counteroffensive, and that's what we are channeling all our energies towards. And with regard to the future, I think I agree with what Emmanuel just said there. Ultimately, that is a decision for Ukraine to make. It's not a decision for us to make for them. Our job is to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position. And that is what our conversations today have been about. That's what our defense ministers spend an enormous amount of time coordinating. And I think actually that the announcements that you've seen from us today around training Marines, helping with the provision of ammunition, are very tangible examples of our commitment to deliver Ukraine that advantage. And that is where all our focus is going to be over the coming weeks and months.
Question suivante pour la presse britannique. Oliver Wright from The Times. Prime Minister, the UK has already...
Hello and welcome to Euronews' special coverage of the first British-French summit since 2018. You've been watching a joint press conference between British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who has travelled to the Élysée Palace in France to meet with French President Emmanuel Macron in efforts to mend relations following post-Brexit tensions, as well as improving military and business ties and toughening efforts against Channel migrant crossings. Stay with Euronews for more updates.
He described it as French efforts. Let's just be clear.